Yeah. Okay. First little disclaimer, the previous time I was on stage somewhere, it was a week ago, I was trying out stand-up comedy, first time ever in Estonian, which is my fourth language. So forgive me if I'm a bit disoriented still. Because today is just tiny bit more serious than comedy. I'm here to talk about why brands should be these days designed, yes, digital first, but even more experience first. But as always, it's in fact me first. So hi, I'm Nils from design agency Bond. I run our Tallinn studio, but most of all, I'm wearing the hats of a creative director and creative strategist, which neatly allows me to combine the experiences that I have gathered in the fields of branding and design and digital and marketing communications. I guess it's now a bit over 20 years that I have worked in these fields. And together with 60 other talented people around the world, we make Bond, which is a global brand and experience design agency. We have studios in Helsinki, London, San Francisco, Dubai, and of course, as a logical continuation to this list, Tallinn. I think we represent 18 nationalities, and what is worth mentioning is that we actually work as a one team across the studios. So for example, I'm personally spending maybe 50% of my time actually working on global projects or international projects with in collaboration with other studios. And we are a bunch of designers, of course, but also storytellers and technologists, which then in turn allows us to apply our expertise in design and technology to build coherent and complete brand experiences, whether it means designing physical spaces or digital experiences or combination of all these. But I'm here not to talk about me or Bond. Rather, I'm here to present 5 little case studies to reach 3 big truths on branding in and for the digital era. Because we believe that we are entering a new era of brand building. So how brands are managed is changing. It's less about managing consistency. It's less about safe areas around logos and color definitions, but rather it's more about inspiring action. The role of the brand is changing. It's not something static or rigid, and we are not that much brand police anymore, rather brand composers or conductors. So it is something more active than it used to be. And even what a brand is changing. So instead of being a collection of assets that are then applied to this world, it is more about brand being an actor. Something that is not anymore like created or held in a vacuum or cage, but but actually created for the stage, something that is, in fact, you could almost say performing to the audience. And when you design your brand this way to be an experience, you'll have an active creator of value for your business. I'm talking to you as if you were brand owners, although I guess this is not exactly the case, but nevertheless you get the point. And of course the goal is to build a brand that is so unmistakable, so strong, so alive, that it will build your future, that you'll build your future on the brand. We like to say that, in fact, brand is a business tool to implement the strategy. It's not just something that you have to have because, I don't know, your website has to look like something, or your business cards need to look pretty. Some big words there, and then of course the question is that, well, show me. And yes, I will try to show you. There's a collection of little bits and pieces, although I maybe overstated that these are case studies, but rather I would say that these are some little glimpses of the thinking that I introduced. So, like said, I think the starting point of designing brands digital first, it is something like pretty self-obvious these days. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it just leads to like, still it just means like afterthoughts, that okay, digital first means that we need to have a logo in motion, and then you somehow force fit your logo to move, whereas ideally it is actually so nowadays that you genuinely think digital first or motion first. So not just putting a logo in motion, but in this case, it is a logo that was meant to be in motion. It's just something that then happens to work in static form also. This was a rebranding for Cable Factory, Kaapelitehdas, which is the biggest cultural center in Finland. I think it could be compared to Aparaattitehdas in Tartu, and surprise, surprise, located in a old cable factory. But it's not just putting the logo in motion, but in fact, it was all about creating a motion language that sprang from the motion of the logo. So the whole identity kind of repeated the same approach as the logo. And speaking of motion language and motion, I think that I can't think of a last branding project that we would have done where part of the process or scope wouldn't have been also creating the motion language. Like we used to define the image style or illustration style, but it's equally nowadays, it is really about creating motion language. Then again, a logo or the brand is not just the logo or logo and motion language or the sum of them, but it can be something so much more. And this is an example of that.
The technology powerhouse Sealy was in need of a full reimagination of their brand to reflect a sharper, more international attitude, while not letting go of their no-nonsense, human-driven approach. With the name literally meaning hedgehog in Finnish, it's easy to get a picture of something small and cute. We saw sharpness and the fact that these animals have literally conquered the world. Its spikes became the foundation for a new versatile and playful design language. We built an AI-powered tool for anyone to add spikes to, well, anything. These spikes also formed a new timeless symbol. Besides embodying a hedgehog in its simplest possible form, it forms perspective lines and is a visual expression of growth potential. But the brand also needed a clear narrative fit for its next chapter. We translated Sealy's pragmatic doer's attitude into a clear positioning, setting them apart from other players by being the company that skips empty promises, that help you find what's essential and then make it real. But for a company with most employees sitting client-side, and in a time of social distancing, it was crucial that every employee would take ownership of the new identity actively. Which made us ask ourselves, how do you make one symbol that captures the personality of 700 individuals? Well, you don't. You make 700 symbols. From a simple idea to real-world impact.
And this is also a good example of how the audience of a brand nowadays, it's not just your clients or consumers, but equally importantly, it's the employees, and brand can be something that really engages the employees, and it is some sort of an experience also for them. And well, 85% of employees inspired by the new identity, not bad, because like especially remembering that there's this tendency that if there's one thing people hate, it's always change. so it tends to be so that whatever you do, the first reaction is always kind of a bit of iffy. Then another example of a logo or symbol being something far more than a passive asset, but rather an active doer having a real function, is this one. Unfortunately, I can't tell much about the context because it is a brand that is only due to be launched, so I won't mention the context or the client. But what is the important thing to tell here is that here the brand design actually happened in sync with the actual service design. Like it was done in collaboration with the company that was building the service, and so the logo or the symbol was at the same time. It was in fact meant to function in the heart of the UI, communicating successes and errors and kind of reacting to the context. And then something completely different, and in fact a little ancient project of ours. Some years ago we were working, kind of developing the brands of Sigur restaurants. Sigur restaurant being this rather ambitious and well-known restaurant operator in Estonia. Back then they had 5 different restaurants, and they were struggling to kind of communicate the differences between the restaurants, but also they missed some sort of a overarching story behind all the restaurants, something that would kind of connect these 5 restaurants. But this is a nice example of how the digital experience can simply be a replication of the real world experience, which is also good to remember for the sake that that as much as brands should be based on reality, also the digital experience should be based on reality. It shouldn't be something just like completely artificial or made up gimmicky thingy that just can be done because of the technology. So in this case, it was a super simple concept of kind of tapping into the fact that sunsets played a role in all of the restaurants. Most of the restaurants are located in the seafront, and well, surprise, surprise, not in February. This isn't very important, but during the summertime, it's kind of part of the experience that you get to admire the sunset. So we created this concept for the websites where the color scheme reacts to the time of the day. It shows when is the sunrise and sundown and how many hours it is until the sunset. And most of all, we created these time-lapse videos that illustrated the atmosphere through the day, kind of in sync with the actual movements of the sun. Well, not actual, but close enough. But I need to warn, if you go visit the websites, I won't guarantee that any of this is working so beautifully nowadays. It was, I think, 5 years ago. So it might be that you'll experience something completely different there now. And then, last but not least, something tiny, but in my opinion, great. But for this case, I need to explain the context a bit, so a little video to do that.
Everything that's great now was once weird, strange, abnormal. So don't fear the things that make you different. Because what makes you stand out is exactly what makes you outstanding.
So this was a youth fashion brand, like a private label fashion brand created for supermarket chain Prisma that is also operating in Estonia. The brand was built around probably the most famous Finnish pop star Antti Tuisku, who's very eccentric and kind of bold guy, and the whole brand is this very aspirational celebration of people being unique and kind of celebrating the differences among us, which is of course like very relevant, or you could almost say educational thinking of teenagers. And kind of the big idea being that great was never normal, but I don't know if you noticed that there was this little detail that the logo actually forms upwards pointing arrow out of the guy's initials. And then this then led to the simple idea when we are talking about the website that does it start to scroll or no? This wasn't the idea. I don't know. I don't know what's happening now. There should be animation that shows how this site was actually scrolled up, not down. A super simple little detail, which unfortunately doesn't now come through. But I'm not saying that the results that we got out of this, that it was due to this reverse scroll, but it is like surely a proof how a strong brand and brand experience that is kind of taken into the smallest details and and the user experience also, how it in fact makes a difference in this world, also business-wise. So the lessons learned, or the famous 3 big truths that I wanted to kind of raise, that I hope that will be inspiring and useful in the future, are, first of all, make the experience bigger, not the logo. The truth is that people are not really interested in logos. I know that brand owners and our clients, they think that logo is something hugely important, and of course it's nice that they appreciate and value our work, but in the end of the day, logo in the corner doesn't really have much value. It is the experience that makes all the difference. Secondly, yes, they say that the devil is in the detail, and in that sense I more than agree that it is usually or often the smallest touches that have the biggest impact. It goes for the real world, that sometimes you remember the smallest touches. The thing that I will remember out of this visit to Tartu was that the organizers had put this chocolate bar in a bag awaiting me in the hotel. It is really like small things, small gestures that people tend to remember and make all the difference. And then finally, you could say that this is almost our design philosophy, that yes, our world will always be complex and connected in a ways that we don't fully understand, but a great brand is the polar opposite of that. That a great brand is simple. It doesn't mean that it needs to be minimalistic design-wise, or that the experience needs to be somehow aesthetic, but something that is easy to understand and something that doesn't complicate people's lives, because once again, people are not really into cracking complicated brand stories, or they are not willing to spend time trying to figure out that, oh, I wonder what is the promise of this brand, but it needs to be simple and it needs to be strong. And this will be my simple winning ending for the session. So thank you, and now we have neatly few minutes for questions.
Thank you, Nils. Do we have any questions in the audience?
There's at least
There's
one.
2 here, 1 there.
Thank you, Nils, for the presentation. I'm here. And this was the best stand-up I've heard the past 24 minutes, or for 24 hours. My question was, you said that you are bringing these real-life experiences into the brand. So I was wondering, how do you work with figuring out what are the real experiences that you should then communicate? Thank you.
I think there's no like a clear formula for this, except doing a lot of what we call dive, kind of getting to understand the brand and the business and the experiences and sometimes it's something that is actually almost like staring at you, that it kind of, the moment it hits you, it's like self-obvious that, oh, of course it's this. But then again, there are examples of kind of instances where kind of the answer is something completely unexpected. well, Volkswagen was it used to be famous for its advertising, and so they, for example, once had this one ad that was, the whole ad was about like this door lock of a, I don't know, Volkswagen Golf, and it was kind of like about complaining that they had found, I don't know, one faulty one or something like that. So it's of course something that you can't possibly come up with ideas like or thoughts like that without seriously looking into things, and sometimes the answer is in small details. Sometimes it is something like quite obvious. But in connection to what I was saying, that these ideas and these experiences have to be like real ones, that even if the path to the idea is quite long or winding, it needs to feel natural. It needs to be something that the audience immediately understand. So it can't be any sort of a shaky, complicated thought structure that you need to then explain to people.
Thank you. I think we had one down here.
Yes, I work in an in-house brand team, and my question is, how do you measure the effectiveness of a brand? Because this is something I personally get asked a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a good question, and I think that it obviously depends on the goals, like what you want to achieve, and then you need to figure out the kind of the metrics for that. But in general, I think that there are like so many different ways how to measure the impact. So it could be something to the direction of like the Sealy example. How many employees are inspired by the new identity or the brand, or kind of how committed they are to the brand. Or then sometimes it is just like pure, I don't know, sales numbers or brand recognition and so forth. So I think that the trick is that you come up with the with the metrics that serve you the best. No, that's of course a joke, but I think that really there are even a lot of cases where kind of the success might not be that obvious, but when you look at the situation from specific angle, you realize that this was a success. Of course, it also works the other way around, so that there might be other metrics that reveal that it was a huge failure. But I can like super quickly tell one example that once. We were working on a case that didn't have like really like a clear KPIs defined from the client side, and first there was this kind of impression that I don't know whether this was success or no, until someone like realized that oh, actually let's figure out how much like PR this project created. What is the value of this media coverage that was gained out of it? Wasn't like a branding project per se, and then when some media agencies started giving these kind of prices for the media visibility, then suddenly the client was more than convinced that it was a huge success, because the budget was tiny and the media coverage value was huge. But that was an example of a case where the first reaction is a bit like, don't know. So yeah.